The Conservative Political Action Conference, also known as CPAC, is underway in Florida this weekend. The annual gathering of conservatives will be the first time we hear from former President Trump since he left office. He will deliver a speech on Sunday. The conference comes at a time of great divide in the Republican Party as members try to determine its future. For more on this, I want to bring in CBS News political reporter Adam Brewster. Hi, Adam. Great to see you. So tell us what we've seen so far from the beginning of the conference today.
One of the things that we've seen talked about, by several speakers in a panel is sort of the effects that COVID-19 has had on the conference and then, on Americans around the country. There were references to the fact that they were able to move the event to Florida because of the way that Governor Ron DeSantis has handled the virus. And there have been, many criticisms of actions that governors in other states have taken that have been more strict in terms of the lockdowns that they were required and the restrictions that have been placed on businesses throughout the pandemic. That's something that we've seen brought up, and we'll certainly see people probably acknowledge it at least once in their remarks as they go through. We've also seen some talk, about reforming election laws. There are many panels that are scheduled throughout the weekend to discuss what Republicans think went wrong within the 2020 election. Of course, that goes, against, many claim, or excuse me, against, what we've seen in terms of there being, not evidence of widespread fraud to overturn the election. And we'll also see throughout the weekend many potential 2024 presidential candidates be speaking. We've seen already Texas Senator Ted Cruz and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis kick things off this morning. And you also will probably hear conservatives talking about how they need to make their voices heard in an era where they believe it is harder to get their messages out there in the media and on social media.
Well, speaking of an era where it's harder to get the Republican message out, this conference comes at a time when there is a growing divide in the party and the future of the party itself is somewhat uncertain. How do Republicans plan to address that piece this weekend?
Well, I think we can expect this to be a pretty Trump-friendly crowd, at least at this weekend, speaking to activist members of the conservative base is who this conference is really targeted at. And I mentioned that Texas Senator Ted Cruz spoke this morning, and he said that, criticized some past Republican policies from leadership of years before and said, in no uncertain terms that, President Trump isn't going anywhere, sort of embracing that and saying that Republicans shouldn't just wash away the last 4 years. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said Republicans can't go back to the establishment of yesteryear. So far, we've already seen him brought up in favorable terms, embracing the former president. Some of his critics in the Republican Party, Senator Mitch McConnell, Congresswoman Liz Cheney, they're not speaking at this event. It is a lot of people who have embraced President Trump and were allies of his while he was in office and since he has left the White House. And, polling from CBS News and many other organizations has shown that President Trump is still very popular among Republican voters. Our polling from a couple weeks ago showed 7 in 10 Republicans wanted the GOP to show loyalty to him. Polling from Suffolk University this week said 6 in 10 Republicans said they'd like to see President Trump run for president again in 2024. So that is sort of all looming over this. But at least among Republican-based voters, the president still remains very favorable.
And he will hence be the keynote speaker. Former President Trump will give his first public address since leaving office at CPAC on Sunday. Are we learning anything more about what he's expected to say?
Matt Schlapp, who is the chairman of the group that oversees CPAC, told our Ed O'Keefe that, based on his conversations with the president, it seems that he's still working through exactly what to say. A source familiar told Arweej Jang a few days ago that the president's expected to talk about, the future of the Republican Party, perhaps criticize some of President Biden's policies. We could see him talk about something like immigration. That could be a topic where that comes up. Of course, that was one of President Trump's signature issues and has vast disagreements with the way that President Biden wants to handle that. And then of course, one of the questions will be how much he talks about the 2020 election and what he thinks went wrong there. We've seen him bring that up in interviews that he has done since leaving office. He did a few last week following after Rush Limbaugh died, when he was talking about Rush Limbaugh's life and brought up what happened in the 2020 election. So I think it remains to be seen if he'll bring that up again on Friday. He would probably have a favorable audience to address that if he chooses to.
And Adam, CPAC is an event where many lesser-known Republicans try to stand out. Is there anyone in particular you are watching this year who may try and enter the political world on a more high-profile level in the future?
There's certainly some, politicians or people who are trying to get, new jobs. That's whether that's Josh Mandel, former treasurer in Ohio, who's running for Senate again. He has multiple speaking appearances. He spoke this morning and said, I'm pro-gun, I'm pro-Trump. He has come out very early in his campaign and tried to establish himself as the Trump-branded candidate in that race. There's the former Republican Party chair in Ohio, who's also running, has also tried to take up that mantle. That'll be fascinating to watch that go out. And then there's some, of course, younger congressmen like Madison Cawthorn and, what we'll see from Congressman Matt Gaetz, who's been a staunch ally of President Trump's, former Ambassador Rick Grinnell, who's been someone who's reported to maybe be considering looking at, running for election in California is slated to speak. It'll be interesting to see what he says. And then it's not just a matter of who is speaking, but what is brought up. There are 7 panels. I mentioned that election integrity, has already come up today, but there are 7 panels, about the 2020 election and voting. And that comes as we have seen Republicans around the country push states to kind of roll back some access to voting or put more restrictions on voting. The Brennan Center for Justice has found more than 250 bills that would do that in over 40 states. And that is an ongoing battle within many states around the country. We've reported about that and talked about that in states like Georgia, in states like Iowa and Arizona, and also in Pennsylvania and Florida. It's happening all over, and these panels will sort of be a place to discuss some of the things that Republicans would like to see states adopt as that push goes on. Those panels will be so interesting to watch to see what comes from those, and then as these laws get sort of worked out, if some of the key themes from this conference emerge as new laws in states around the country.
Absolutely. Well, Adam Brewster, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.